What is up, everyone? And today I am going to scratch myself, apparently. What is up, everyone? And today I'm going to review a... give me a second, I kind of have to take this. Hello?
Good morning, Mr. Corey. This message is brought to you directly from IMF. We've noticed that on March 7th you wanted to have a Mission Impossible marathon, and you started off by reviewing the original film released in 1996. However, we've come to realize that you have abandoned your Mission Impossible marathon and focused your attention on other marathons like Sonic, Terminator, and Pixar marathons. That Ghost Protocol poster in the background doesn't help. We have decided that we want to bring you back to Mission Impossible. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to finish reviewing all of the Mission Impossible movies as soon as you possibly can. Should you, or any of your film crew teammates, are to be caught or killed during execution of this marathon, the Secretary will disavow any knowledge of your opinions. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Good luck, Corey.
Mission Impossible 2 was released in 2000 and it stars Tom Cruise. It was directed by John Woo and is the second installment in the Mission Impossible franchise. In this movie, Ethan Hunt, played by Tom Cruise, discovers about this new special virus known as Chimera, and he also finds out about the cure called Bellerophon. Wait, is it Bellerophon or Bellerophone? I don't know which one it is. Hold it. I'm googling it. Chimera and Bellerophon. Okay, that's what it is. So Ethan Hunt finds out about a very deadly virus known as Chimera and its very powerful cure known as Bellerophon. It's kept together and there's this villain who managed to steal and get his hand on both items, and he basically has this diabolical plan where he spreads Chimera all over the entire planet, starting with Australia, and then he's going to sell the cure, Bellerophon, and he's going to make himself very rich because everyone will be wanting this Bellerophon because Chimera is a very, very deadly virus. You know what? With someone that has that kind of virus, I've actually come to realize Skynet is no longer responsible for Judgment Day. This man is. If no one can afford the Bellerophon, game over. He just ended the world. So Ethan Hunt hatches up a just as elaborate plan by using this villain's ex-girlfriend to spy on him and get all the information they need, so Ethan Hunt has the ability to stop him. Now, if you guys saw my review of the original film, you would know that I really like the original Mission Impossible movie. I think it's a very, very good thriller as well as a great action film because it's more of a thriller and a drama than it is an action film, considering there's only like 2 action scenes in it. But overall, despite the lack of action, I still think it's a very well done and a very well made movie. So I really like the original Mission Impossible. What are my thoughts on the sequel? Well, I seriously relate to this movie as far as its release goes. Why? Because it came out in the year 2000, the same year I was born. Not only that, but it takes place in Sydney. I'm an Australian, I'm an Aussie, and this is where this movie takes place. And it came out around the same time I was born, so I seriously relate to this movie. Which is why it is extremely unfortunate for me to say that this is by far the weakest film in the entire franchise. Now, I'm not going to call Mission Impossible 2 flat out bad, far from it, but it's definitely the weakest of the films. I'm really not a fan of the story for this movie. The original movie had a story and it felt like something that would be in a movie called Mission Impossible. For those who don't remember, the first film was about going after this list. And the list was important because it matched up a bunch of code names with real names, and these lists that connect the true names and the false names are all connected because it's related to a certain man that betrayed IMF. And so the idea of these people going after these discs that had very special lists on it, that sounds like something I would see in a Mission Impossible movie. And I don't mind the idea of the virus and the cure and all that stuff, but where I think this movie goes way too far in my opinion is the romance. The romance felt really, really forced. And I'm gonna be honest, some of the dialogue is pretty corny. Would it make you feel better if I didn't want you to do this? Yeah, much! Then feel better! It's just that romance is not Mission Impossible. Now, I know that Mission Impossible 3 had a similar romance subplot. However, for reasons I'll explain in my review for Mission Impossible 3, I feel like that the one in MI3 was executed a lot better. Again, more on that when I actually get to Mission Impossible 3. Am I the only one who finds it really offensive that in this movie, the method that IMF uses to achieve their goal is by using a woman that is an ex-girlfriend to the villain to spy on her ex-boyfriend just to get information off them? IMF in this movie is literally using a woman for their own purposes. Now, I'm someone who really appreciates strong female characters in this movie, and she is relatively strong, like she is proven to be a pretty good thief. However, the fact that she has to be used in this movie, and the fact that she turns into a damsel in distress at the end of the movie, I am just not a fan of this character. And the romance just feels really sappy, and it just takes away from the Mission Impossible feel. Which is a massive problem because there's tons of this romance and virus stuff. And there's all this virus exposition and all this romance stuff going on. And there's so much of it in the first half of the movie that the action doesn't start until literally an hour and 3 minutes into the movie. This honestly makes the first half of Mission Impossible 2 really hard to sit through in my opinion, and if the entire movie was like the first half, I probably would have nearly hated this film. And that causes the pacing to be all over the place. It has some really serious pacing issues, because we have the first half which has little to no action. The only action scenes I can remember from the first half is a rock climbing sequence and a car chase sequence, and sort of a burglary sequence in the beginning, but I don't know if that really counts as an action sequence. And since the first half is so exposition and romance heavy, that when we finally get to the second act, it's like John Woo was like, oh wow, I barely have any action in this movie, and then he shoehorns all of the action into the second half of the movie. I know it sounds like I'd be exaggerating or making this up, but I'm not exaggerating. The first half of the movie is nothing but exposition, and the second half of the movie is nothing but action. Action, 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 action all the way through. Which admittedly does make the second act really, really entertaining to watch. I really enjoy the second half of this movie. However, it's just that since there's so much action in the second one, all the exposition is really dumped in the first half, and it just feels like it's a lot longer and it's a lot more drained out, and it's a lot harder to sit through than the second half. How I think this movie could have been fixed with its story and pacing issues is get rid of the romance stuff, so Ethan's just working with a woman. However, there's no romance. Tone down the exposition and get all the action that's in nothing but the second half, and then even it out so we get some exposition, then some action, exposition, then some action, which is what a lot of action movies do. That would give it a much better sense of pacing, because the fact that it's got nothing but action in one half and nothing but exposition in the other half, it feels like the movie is really disorganized. And Ethan Hunt does not feel like Ethan Hunt from the first movie. This feels like a different Ethan Hunt. His personality is very different. I love the character Ethan Hunt in the first movie. One thing I really liked about Ethan Hunt in the first movie is that he was vulnerable, and whenever things went wrong, he would panic, and he felt like a human being, and there's just something about his personality that I loved in the first movie. One example I have is that in the original movie, there's a really, really great scene where something terrible has happened to the rest of his team. So in a panic, he finds a payphone and he calls for help. And you can tell by the delivery of his lines that he is freaking out. You can tell by the delivery of his lines that he is terrified. He doesn't know what to do. He is panicking, he is yelling, he is screaming. And it is possibly one of my favourite scenes in the movie because it is such a well done scene and it really establishes his character. This is not the Ethan Hunt we get in this movie. In this movie he just acts like the cool guy and he's extremely tough. Like he can do a lot of really crazy things without getting a sense of injury. He just sort of acts like the big cool guy and he's really, really tough and he's almost invincible really. And he really doesn't have that much personality in this movie. He has a lot more personality in the other movies. But this one, he's a bit more bland, really. But one thing I will say is that he does definitely do one thing towards the end of this movie that I did think was really, really clever. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. And while we're talking about characters on the side here, why not talk about the villain of this movie? Wow, not a good villain. The villain in this movie is terrible. He is so two-dimensional. For starters, his goal, it's pretty stupid. Now, I get the idea. I like how he wants to use this virus and he wants to spread it across the entire globe, and then he's going to sell the cure, so everyone would be desperate to get this cure, and so this would make him a lot of money. I get that. However, when you really think about how this plan would work, it makes no sense. How on earth is he going to spread this virus across the entire globe? Now, it makes a little bit more sense because they did something a bit similar to this in the climax of a movie called Allegiant, which I saw recently, and I just haven't had that much time to review it, despite the fact it's a new release. I won't give anything away because Allegiant is a relatively new movie. However, they do a similar thing during Allegiant, and I feel like that it was well executed because they did explain how that kind of thing would work. Here, you want to spread a virus across the entire globe. How on earth are you going to do that? What are you going to do? You're just going to have some sort of vaccination gun or something and you're just going to zap every single person you see? Yeah, that will totally work. Okay, so maybe he has a pretty dumb cartoony plan that you'd see in a Saturday kids cartoon, but what about his motivation? Does he have some sort of tragic backstory or anything? Why is he doing all this terrible stuff? Because he wants money. That's literally his only motivation. There's even this backstory that they've got with the woman that IMF is using to spy on this villain. Like their ex-boyfriend and girlfriend. And that is some serious potential to really give him more motivation. And it's just a wasted opportunity. The only reason why he's a villain is just so he can get money. I'm telling you, if you don't like two or one-dimensional villains that are cardboard cutouts and they just want money, you will hate the villain in this movie. And like I said earlier, the first half of this movie is so bogged down with exposition and romance that the first half of the movie doesn't even feel like a Mission Impossible movie. The only time when I really justify the film being called Mission Impossible 2 is during the second half of the movie. It isn't until an hour into the movie until we get an action scene that actually contributes to the plot. Yeah, there's one or two action scenes during the first half, however, they serve nothing to the plot at all. But to this movie's credit, the action in the second half of the movie is actually really entertaining, and really the action slash the second half of this movie alone is why I don't hate this movie. In fact, I kind of feel like that the second half of the movie is so entertaining and so fun to watch. It kind of feels like it makes up for all the bogged down first half of the movie. The second half of the movie has tons of action. There's a whole sequence where Ethan Hunt is infiltrating a special room to destroy Chimera. There's another action scene where he's on a motorbike, another action scene where he's in a cave, a really brutal fight scene on a beach. When all that stuff is going down in the second half of this movie, I'm having fun. It's just really entertaining, fun action movie stuff. And it's a lot better than the action sequences we get in the beginning of the film. And here's my main reason. For starters, the rock climbing action sequence. I think it's a really cool sequence visually, it's really fun to watch and look at. However, this is probably one of, if not the most dangerous stunt Tom Cruise has ever done. Either that or the stunt with the knife in the eye in this movie. One of those two is probably the most dangerous stunt he's ever done. And it's really cool and fun to look at. However, how far they took that is really insane. You know how in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Tom Cruise climbs the Burj Khalifa on the outside and he's actually doing that? Well, at least he had harnesses on. The rock climbing sequence, he's literally out there hanging on his hands with nothing but his hands to support him. The rocks that he was climbing on was too edgy and rickety and all that stuff, so they weren't able to attach harnesses to him. So he's just exposed out there, hanging for dear life. So when he's jumping from one rock to another, he is in serious danger. Tom Cruise, I respect you for doing your own stunts and all, but this is ridiculous! And it's not just that, but why is Tom Cruise really risking his life to that extent just to get one pretty cool scene? Because like I said, it contributes absolutely nothing to the plot. Maybe if the villain used a chopper and he got to the mountain, so the only way Tom Cruise was able to catch him is by doing this rock climbing, which enters into this scene, then I would more support the scene. But it was just such a dangerous stunt for Tom Cruise to do that I find it really shocking, honestly. I support the fact that Tom Cruise likes to do his stunt. I feel like that's a really great attitude about filmmaking. But I feel like that this stunt was going a bit too far. So was the stunt with the knife and the eye. And I know Chris Stuckman already spoke about this one, but it's really shocking. You know that iconic shot when the knife comes really, really close to Ethan's eye? Well, that is real. They hooked up a real knife to a wire to a machine so it can only go a certain distance. And so they used a real knife, and it's really there, really pointy, and really, really close to Tom Cruise's face. The rest of the action, though, I do admit is really, really good. Honestly, those stunts are just insane. But the rest of the action is really fun and is really entertaining to watch. When the action's happening, it is really fun. I just wish that the more dangerous stunts like the rock climbing sequence contributed to the plot more. Because since it doesn't contribute to the plot, it just feels like that Tom Cruise was out risking his life for no reason. Another issue I do have with the action, despite the fact I do think it's really entertaining, is that it's really, really stylized. Yes, I'm talking about the doves. It's just that the doves flying through fire. It makes no sense. I mean, we've got action sequences where we've got flames and fire, and then we see doves just flying through the fire. It's become a meme at this point. That shot where Tom Cruise goes through the flames in the motorcycle, though, that shot is awesome. Another thing a lot of people seem to make fun of that I do agree is the fact that there is a lot of slow-mo. And lots of reused cuts. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There is a moment in the movie where Tom Cruise is waving his gun past the camera, and John Woo thought that that was such a cool moment that he used the same shot in just a different angle 4 times in a row. There's a moment where the film is literally edited like this. It's the same shot from just a different angle 4 times in a row. So the action is really entertaining. I just agree that it is overly stylized. So the action is really entertaining, but that is really the best thing about this movie. And overall, like I said, Mission Impossible 2 is definitely the worst movie in the franchise. Now, I do have Mission Impossible 2 on DVD, and I do watch it from time to time, but the only reason why I really have it on DVD is just so I can finish off my Mission Impossible collection. It's not a terrible movie. In fact, I wouldn't even dare even say it's not even a bad movie. It's just okay. It's just a simple, fun action movie, however, there is a lot of problems with it. But it is a well-directed movie, like it's a well-made movie. The cinematography is good, the score by Hans Zimmer is pretty good. Overall, I do think it's a well-made film. My main problem with it is mainly just the decisions behind it. This is easily the weakest movie in the franchise, and I'm going to give Mission Impossible 2 a C. It's not a terrible movie, it's not even a bad movie, but it's definitely a really disappointing movie after the brilliant movie that was the first one. But the thing I find really weird about this movie is that there is a review on the back of this DVD case that says it's exhilarating. MI2 is a pure kinetic adventure. Thumbs up. Gee, whoever wrote that review must have been very forgiving. Seriously? Roger Ebert, who is known as the most iconic movie critic ever, and yet he thought this movie was fantastic? Roger Ebert, I respect you and all, but there are some things I don't understand.
It could be worse, Corey. I heard that he really likes Home Alone 3, and he hates the first 2.
Hey, what?! In order to enjoy this movie, you just need to sit through the first half of mediocrity before you get to good action stuff at the end of the film. So that is my thoughts on Mission Impossible 2. Stay tuned for my review for Mission Impossible 3. I really look forward to that one. And so, hasta la vista, baby.